Hello. Hello. Thank you for joining us today. Can you hear me? Is this working? It's not working. Hello. Oh, it's working. Okay. Hi. Oh, there I am. Hi. Thank you all for being here today. I'm Dorga Chomyak. I'm the CEO of Razom for Ukraine. And it's my honor to welcome you to our events here alongside the 2025 Ukraine Recovery Conference. First, a heartfelt thank you to our partners, the Atlantic Council's Europe and Eurasia Centers, the American Chamber of Commerce in Italy, and of course, the Center for American Studies for hosting us in this beautiful space. It is stunning as an American with an American Studies certificate. It is stunning. So to all of you distinguished guests, friends, it's a privilege to gather with you for these critical conversations. At Razom, our mission is to help build a secure, democratic, and prosperous Ukraine. And here in Rome, it's already clear that this mission is shared by everyone in this room. Today, we aren't here to prepare for Ukraine's recovery. It's already happening. We're here to accelerate it by building connections, by developing creative solutions, and very importantly, by taking action. After the conference this weekend, I'll be traveling to Ukraine to continue this work on the ground with our team, and I look forward to working with many of you to carry these conversations to action. So while Russia continues its invasion of Ukraine, escalating its strikes on civilians every day, just last night, 718 of which were shot down. Ukrainians deserve the support necessary to ensure that our contributions to their recovery are as swift, comprehensive, and successful as possible. Ukraine's success strengthens the rest of Europe and the transatlantic community. A thriving Ukraine is a powerhouse of industry, defense, and human capital. Its ongoing recovery benefits all of us. So as we'll hear on our first panel, Ukraine is not only a recipient of aid, it's a partner, a leader, and a source of profound lessons for Western allies at a time of great vulnerability for the free world. As an American, I know we cannot afford not to work with and learn from Ukrainians. So let's dive in. Our opening panel, Securing Ukraine, Securing Europe, the role of the defense industrial base in Ukraine's recovery, brings together key voices on the topic. So please join me in welcoming our moderator, Eric Brattenberg, who's the non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Europe Center. Eric, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dora, and thank you for Razom for your great work on Ukraine and for partnering with us here today. Good afternoon and welcome, and also let me echo your remarks about this beautiful space that we're in. It's wonderful to be here in Rome during this important week to work on Ukraine's reconstruction and recovery. I'm Eric Bratberg. I'm a non-resident senior fellow at the Atlantic Council, and I'm delighted to be moderating this panel on Securing Ukraine, Securing Europe, the role of the defense industrial base in Ukraine's economic recovery. And of course, as Ukraine's recovery ultimately depends on a durable peace and security. We're here today to discuss the role of Ukraine's defense industrial base in that effort and what the opportunities are to continue to working on this together with the US and Europe, but also very much what the lessons are from Ukraine, as Ukraine has done an incredible job at driving innovation, being flexible, being dynamic in this space of defense industry. There are a lot of lessons for the West in the US and Europe that we can glean as well. So that's what we're here to talk about today, and we have a great panel to do so. On my right is Her Excellency the Deputy Minister for Strategic Industries of Ukraine, Anna Vostyar. We're very delightful that you are here. Thank you very much. We also have, thank you, a round of applause. We also have with us, I believe, Tobias Elling-Rayfeld, the Defense Policy Director at the Danish Ministry of Defense. We're also delighted to have Benjamin Hilgenstock, the Head of Macroeconomic Research and Strategy at the Kyiv School of Economics, an important institution in Kyiv on macroeconomics. We're also delighted to have Karen Rogers, Senior Director, International Government Relations at Northrop Grumman, and thank you for your partnership as well as Alessandro Rico, Senior Vice President of Product Marketing at Leonardo, and our other friends. So we're delighted to have all of you here. I'm going to turn over to our speaker from Ukraine first, because I know you have to run in 20 minutes, but we really want to hear from you, both how you see the priorities in terms of the defense industrial base in Ukraine, as well as the role of partnerships with the US and Europe.
Thank you so much. So it was like 15 minutes ago. I had to run after 20 minutes, but I'm happy to be with all of you here today. I will try to be very short, but thank you all for coming, and thanks for your interest to Ukrainian defense industry. Is actually Ukrainian defense industry is important for Ukraine today for two reasons. First of all, our main task as the Ministry for Strategic Industries is to fulfill the expectations on the front line. You know that there are constantly ongoing fights. We have a lot of threats, even in civilian city, like Dora just mentioned, because of constant shelling of our civilian cities. So air defense is another challenge for us. And another topic is economy. We spend all our money to provide all necessary weapons and equipment to our front line. So it seems like this war will not finish tomorrow. Unfortunately, we understand that Ukraine has to be capable to defend ourselves, and for that we need more weapons, for that we need our economy run, and for that we need more and more weapons to be produced in Ukraine, more people to work in this sector. So that's why the defense industry is very strategic industry for us. Speaking about what lessons we learn every day, so I think I would like to share this topic for you. So first is innovation cycle on the front line. You know that there are just two countries in the world knowing how to fight in a drone war. One is Ukraine, another one is Russia. So I recommend you to partner with Ukraine because actually Russia forced us to be very innovative. It's not just our decision. You know that Ukraine is a very well-known country for IT industry and for agriculture, but Russians force us to be very good in defense industry. So innovations that are coming from the front line every day are the key for development of our defense industry. And to learn those lessons, you have to be in Ukraine. This is the main rule that we try to deliver to all of our partners. We want you to learn from us. We want you to learn with us how to be innovative, how to create the best weapons, the best equipment against Russia and their allies. But you need to be in Ukraine. You need to learn these lessons with us, with our manufacturers, and we are very open for that. And second is actually defense industry, like industrial approach. We don't have much time to make defense industry slow. We don't have that much time and money to make defense industry expensive. So to fulfill all the tasks on the front line, we create things which are cheap, which are easy to manufacture, and which are very effective on the front line. So now what we see that for some of manufacturers, we have very amazing numbers. So speaking about self-propelled howitzers Bogdana, you know, this is very well-known artillery system in Ukraine. So now we can produce over 30 per month. This is amazing number. And when people ask us what is the industrial approach, so first is a very big need, and second, people working in this factory, they're not from defense industry, so they never know that artillery system is very difficult to produce, and it takes years, you know, to develop the system that can work on the front line. So I think this is another lesson that you can learn from us, not just innovations from the front line, but also different experience for the industry, for your businesses. Because I think that defense industry in the world will change. It changed already. So we used to very slow, difficult to access industry. Like it's, let's say that weapon production used to be a closed club. Like you can just start produce weapon if you want, but it's possible in Ukraine. Like most of defense tech companies came from IT sector, from other civilians industries. They just wanted to contribute to the victory. And that's how they started to produce great things for the front line. And I think this is another reason that we expect the changes in the world defense industry. So it will be never a closed club. It probably will be cheaper. It probably will be, the access will be easier. So we Ukrainians can provide you this experience. We are ready to share this with you, that the world has changed, and to be competitive on the future world defense industry market, you have to know how to make it cheaper, how to make it faster. And this industrial experience, we will be also very happy to share with your companies.
Wonderful. And Minister, building on that, can you talk a little bit more about how you work to attract those kind of partnerships, how you entice them, and are there challenges? I mean, I'm thinking specifically regarding maybe intellectual property, when it comes to building or co-production. How do you work to kind of forge those partnerships that you're talking about?
So it's two different things that we try to attract all the people, and the second is what we are actually doing for that to defeat those challenges. At this moment, Ukraine has martial law. Ukraine has some legislation gaps which we try to cover. We're now working on the Ukrainian law for protection and control of foreign investment. So now we work on creating some very friendly environment for foreign manufacturers who would like to come to Ukraine. We want to expand now the rights for foreign people coming to Ukraine, so they will be like, it will be easier for them to open an entity in Ukraine, to open a bank account, to bring some investment, to be able to get this investment back if it's need or if it's some kind of income, to have equal rights in intellectual property. Again, it's still difficult in Ukraine, but we're working hard, and we also work with some of our partners, some of foreign companies. So we are like tracking the way of coming to Ukraine. We know all the challenges, and we try to defeat those challenges, because we think this will be the fastest way to do this, because like we understand that we have one aim, and our ministry doesn't want just to produce another law which will never work. So we work from our side. We opened an investment support office in Ministry of Strategic Industries. So this office will provide all the services, even sometimes an advice or communication, or answer all the questions if foreign companies who would like to come to Ukraine, if there are any, with like Ukrainian other ministries, ecosystem, etc. And second is that we also have our experience. In 2022, we got so many equipment from our partners, and this equipment was great, but unfortunately Russian warfare is also developing, and some of the things that we had in 2022 are just not working anymore on the front line. So this experience can be just transferred in the letter or in the book, or we can write you or tell you, because it changes every day. And you have to understand that it's not just about the technical specification. This is also about the difference how Russians warfare acting against us. So to get all these lessons, you have to be in Ukraine. And Ukraine is very open. We have over 1,000 great manufacturers of different things, starting from ammunition, ending with the satellites for the space intelligence, etc. So all those companies also need some experience, they need some new technologies, etc. And they are very open for cooperation. So for me, it's my personal point that it's better to come to Ukraine, have a great partner on the ground who is well experienced in making business in Ukraine. Ukraine has a big ecosystem. Many people now working for defense industry. You see, I have Zbroya. This is a new word, how we call defense industry ecosystem, because it's much more than just private government-owned sector. It's universities, science institutes, innovation teams who constantly work to make our equipment better. So you can have an access to this big ecosystem, to this huge knowledge that we have in Ukraine. So my point and my advice is, please come to Ukraine, have a great partner. We do a lot of matchmaking to help you to find a better partner in Ukraine. We have people who are ready to provide all the answers, but I think that it's impossible to create something for Ukraine outside of Ukraine today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Deputy Minister. And we know you need to run in a few minutes, but thank you very much for all your efforts. Thank you. Let me turn to our virtual guest, Deputy Permanent Secretary Elling Refeld, who's joining us from Denmark. You know, Denmark, of course, has been, in many ways, a leader in terms of supporting Ukraine's own defense industry. And you, last month, announced an agreement to support the production of companies from Ukraine's defense industry in Denmark. So I'm curious, Deputy Secretary, how does Denmark see the role of Ukraine's defense industry as part of Ukraine's larger recovery? And what's your message to the group here, please?
Thank you very much, Eric. And I am really sorry I'm not in Rome these days. I'm in Copenhagen. It's cold and rainy, and I wish I was joining you on stage. But since I'm not, thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for the question. So maybe if I can just take you a few years back, when the invasion happened in 2022, we, as all other friends of Ukraine, were looking through our stocks to see what can we provide, how can we assist. We were providing our F-16s, we were providing our artillery systems. We were basically, like many other allies in Europe, running out of stock to provide. We needed a new idea. We needed to move this somewhere else. And what we came up with last year is what we have, well, for lack of a better name, called the Danish model, which was really our first step into this very close collaboration we have with the Ukrainian defense industry that has developed since. And just to give you an idea what the Danish model is, it's basically a government to business model. So that means that Denmark, in cooperation with other nations and with the EU, we provide funding for the Ukrainian government that use this funding to purchase equipment through the Ukrainian defense industry. So this and just to give you an idea of the scale, last year in 2024, we and other partners funded military equipment for around 600 million euros in 2024 from Denmark, from Sweden, Iceland, and the EU. And these funds were provided into Ukrainian defense industry that then in turn produced artillery systems, the Bordana we just heard about, long-range strike drones, missiles, and so on and so forth. Now, there are many benefits of doing this way. First of all, it's much cheaper. And we are in a situation where, you know, the more funds we can get, the more equipment we can get to the front, the better we support Ukraine. So just to give you, and I don't want to mention any names, but just an artillery system is a third of the price when it's produced in Ukraine than what if we were to buy it from a European producer. Second is it's much faster. So instead of waiting months and years from we make our buy to it's actually at the front, it's a matter of months. Thirdly, it means that the Ukrainians themselves can do all the servicing. They know the systems. They know how to get it to work. It's not complicated. So in a situation where the threat is as severe as it is now, you get speed and you get knowledge and you get local servicing, which just makes it a much better product. So last year was the first step into this. This year we've increased the model. So currently we are looking at around 1.3 billion euros that we will provide to Ukrainian defense industry with a number of new partners, including Canada, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, the EU. If there anyone in the audience that wants to participate, we are open for business because the reality is that the Ukrainian defense industry has an enormous unused capacity. So if you look at, when we talk to our Ukrainian friends, they said when the war started in 2022, the defense industry capacity was about 1 billion euros. Today, 3 years later, it's about 35 billion euros. And only half of that is financed, which means every year we have a potential of 17 billion euros of investments into the Ukrainian defense industry that will immediately turn into weapon systems at the battlefront. So for us, this is not donating. This is investing into European security and investing into our own security. So that's the Danish model, sort of the first version. Now, the second version that we have been developing with our Ukrainian friends and with other international partners is to take it a step further, defense Danish model 2.0, inviting Ukrainian defense industry into Denmark to set up production in Denmark. And why would we do this, you may ask? Well, I think that this is as our Chinese friends would say, a win-win situation. For our Ukrainian friends, it guarantees security of supply. It's a safe haven for production. It provides access to financing. It provides access to sort of high quality partners, exchange of innovation and technology. For us, it provides access to battle-proven technology. Now, we are in a situation where we have to severely invest into our own security for the next number of years. We have NATO capability targets. That means we have to, in Denmark, to finance 150 billion Danish crowns a year of investments. So, and we have a very, very sophisticated, but a fairly small defense industry base. We need to build that base. And what better way to do this and to invite friends that we know have the capability to do this, and to help be a partner in that production. It's a win for Ukraine, and it's a win for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Let me turn. And by the way, the Danish model is a great model that we think there's a lot of potential for other member states to replicate as well. And thank you for your leadership. Let me turn to Benjamin. I mean, you're an economist. Here we're talking about the defense industry. Can you help us situate the defense industry in terms of Ukraine's economy and in terms of FDI and investments that we see in Ukraine? And where do you see opportunities as we look forward?
Yeah, thank you very much. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this event. Thank you to the organizers. I wanted to look at this from a somewhat broader macro perspective. First, from the Ukrainian side, most institutions agree that Ukraine's economy will grow at like a rate of 4 to 5% annually after the war is over. That's not a bad number, but we should be honest and acknowledge that this means Ukraine's GDP will not get back to 2021 numbers until somewhere around 2030. Now, there's lots of challenges in terms of capital and labor, of course, but nevertheless, a faster recovery is needed, and a faster recovery will require additional investment. And the defense industry obviously is one destination for such investment. Also, this is very important from a macro stability and debt sustainability perspective. Ukraine has received a lot of foreign financial assistance in recent years, but quite a decent chunk of that was in the form of loans, and it has to be repaid at some point. And the way to get your debt to GDP ratio under control is by increasing GDP growth. And this will continue to be a challenge because we know already that if the war continues in 2026, at the current levels, the existing commitments in terms of financial assistance will not be sufficient. There's already conversations underway in Brussels about a second part of the ERA mechanism or something like that. This will just increase the debt load of Ukraine, and the way to get out of this is by generating stronger GDP growth, which then brings us back to the defense sector. The Danish colleague already talked about the capacity of the industry. There's estimates that last year, defense industry contributed about $10 billion to GDP. It could be 15 billion this year, and it could be around 50 billion capacity by the end of the decade. Now, as he said, a lot of the capacity is not used right now. So there's an opportunity to grow the economy and for foreign investors to find a good place for their investment. Now, from the European perspective, this is also quite important. It seems that many people in Europe, most political decision makers at least, have finally gotten the message. If Germany, my country, decides to basically throw the debt brake out of the window and spend €1 trillion on defense, something must have changed. Clearly, there's various initiatives on the European level to generate fiscal space for countries, access to cheaper loans than they could secure on the market, exemptions from the debt criteria under Maastricht, so that would give them space. But the money part is probably the easier part. We have to figure out how to spend this money, what to spend it on, how to quickly get results. There's all these estimates when Russia will be able or ready for a broader war with NATO, with the West. So this has to happen relatively quickly. And I think most people would agree that European militaries don't have the best track record when it comes to quick and efficient procurement. What usually happens is that you formulate the criteria for a new fighter jet, a new artillery system, whatever. There's about 3 to 4 companies that can reasonably apply. One of them will get the contract. 20 years later, you get something that isn't quite up to the specifications, is terribly over budget and very, very late. Considering the experiences from this war, the deputy minister spoke about this very well. I don't think this model is going to work. If we think about which drones to buy now, they will be outdated in about 3 months or 3 weeks. I know there's already all sorts of companies that are pitching their solutions to European militaries, like buy 100,000 of our drones and all of your problems are solved. I don't think that's going to be a successful approach. And here there's a lot to be learned from the Ukrainian experience. I know probably many people in European military procurement agencies are going to have aneurysms when they think about giving individual military units the ability to procure their own equipment. But that's the kind of flexibility that we need. And finally, let me close by saying it's not only about learning from Ukraine and then implementing these lessons somewhere else in Europe. It is about relying upon Ukraine's expertise and defense industrial base to actually get European rearmament done effectively and quickly.
Great.
So let me leave it at that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Let me turn to Karen. Northrop Grumman has recently finalized a co-production agreement to build medium caliber ammunition in Ukraine. You were the first US defense company to do so, so great on you. And you're doing this while the war in Ukraine is still ongoing. So, what are the lessons from your experience so far? And what kind of challenges have you encountered? Maybe in terms of, staffing. I know US personnel is restricted from going into Ukraine. So how have you overcome some of those potential challenges?
So I would like to give credit to Anna and MSI in her absence, because that is part of how we got here. Over a year ago, we sat with them and talked about what we could do, and that's how we got here. They helped us find the right partner. Our approach in general to international business is to partner with somebody in the country. It's not to bring Northrop, but to bring our expertise to help build sovereign capacity. And for those who are unaware, we're actually one of the largest manufacturers of munitions, and we've helped a lot of countries stand up their own sovereign munitions capacity. And that's exactly what we've done in working with Ukraine, but it was about finding the right partner who could help basically bring the training and bring the right expertise that we could then provide all of our expertise and the equipment, and they can go off and build their own sovereign capacity to rearm the Ukrainian military. So a lot of it has been about finding the right partner and then having the right support. As I think anybody who works in defense knows, there's always some piece of the process that requires some level of government support or government approvals, and having those partners is exactly how we got here. And the other piece of this is in part because of the project we've been working on. We're part of the Business Advisory Council, which is part of the UGP. And it's given us the opportunity to work with all the other industries that are also looking at Ukraine and addressing all of the other fundamental challenges to recovery, but from a business perspective. So I really do applaud the Ukrainians for really thinking about how to partner with industry early and helping us find the right partners in Ukraine.
Great, thank you so much. I want to turn to Enrico Della Gatta, Senior Vice President at Fincantieri. You know, we're talking about the lessons from Ukraine in terms of how they've been able to innovate and be flexible in the defense industry. And I'm curious how you see, you know, really the lessons for Europe here in terms of what we can learn from and how to support innovation in the defense sector. With all of these revolutions and innovation taking place, how can the industry itself learn and innovate at speed like we're seeing in Ukraine? What lessons can Italy and Europe learn from this?
I'll start citing myself when I was in Kyiv a couple of months ago. And when I got insight from the operators from the front line, I understood that we cannot sell refrigerators to the people living in the Arctic region. And for sure, nowadays, our friends in Ukraine are the Arctic people in drones manufacturing. So if we think that in somehow we can help this warfighting phase in building drones, we are on the wrong way, and that's for sure. I'm saying this because what is showing the war in Ukraine is that nowadays that country, unfortunately, is a laboratory, a live laboratory. So it's the land of military innovation. And as the deputy minister was saying a few minutes ago, they are cheaper, faster, and better than us. That is not a claim. It's not a Californian smart startup claim. It's a real approach to the manufacturing. The innovation in military realm, it's not something easy. So the first lesson that we should learn from the warfighting phase is the time that we used to call time to market, the time that comes from operational requirements to the first prototype. Nowadays, it is measured in weeks. From the first critical requirements to the first prototype, it passed no more than 5 weeks. I know what I'm saying, being a prime representative, but in a Western world, for the prime industry, it takes 5 weeks to try to fix a meeting, 2 years to understand the critical requirements, and 10 years to arrive at the first prototype. So this is the first lesson. If the Western, the European industrial base would be compliant with the lesson learned from the Ukrainian wars, we should change our way of thinking. This is the first, the first point that I have. If we want to innovate, we should change radically. The second point that I got is that the importance of supply chain. I think that since 2020, since the COVID pandemic, we are discussing the importance of reshaping the value chains, onshoring, friendshoring, nearshoring, call you whatever you want. Once again, since 2022, it is clear that the onshoring, it's not a willingness, is operational critical requirements. So the production lines need to be close to the front line. The third point that I got is that the attrition is not something that belongs to the first 20 days of war, but 3 years after is a kind of new paradigm. And we need to acknowledge that the importance of mass production. I like to call it weaponization of mass production. It's not only to have cheaper, faster, and better products, but we need to be able to mass product those products. And this is one of the role that the defense industries could play. I know that the Ukrainian Navy does not have fleet, but was able to sink 1/3 of Russian fleets with drones. But I see someone that is agreeing with the head, but we know that those drones are made up as a single mission drones. The role of the industry could be to move from prototype, from single object to mass production. And it's something that we can do together, because we can try to industrialize the new know-how coming from the battlefield. So I think this is the second role that industry could play. The third one is to try to shape together the new requirements and to understand how to protect the new domain. The Black Sea is teaching us that it's important to operate on the surface, but it's much more important to operate and protect what is below the line of the sea. The underwater domain is something so new and so peculiar that is important to protect. And protection and security of critical maritime infrastructure is the prerequisite for the reconstruction. If you do not have a safe and security environment, it will be difficult to have a reconstruction phase on the shore. Give me a few seconds more. And learning from what is arriving from Ukraine, I think that is important in some way or another to secure the strategic hub of the Black Sea. And the strategic hub of the Black Sea is the Odessa port. Let me say the Odessa area that has close relationship to this country, having been built by an Italian Navy officers at the end of 18th century in 1794, with the willingness of Catherine II. Nowadays, without the strength and the protection of Odessa critical underwater infrastructure, will be difficult from my personal point of view to imagine the open door from and to the Ukraine. And that's the reason why we are working with Ukrainian authorities to develop a globally front-edge new modular technological system to protect the port area, the critical underwater infrastructures, the mooring areas. And it takes at least, I would say, 3 different modular. The first one is the aerial module to protect from the aerial attack from drones. The second one is the area of the port. The third and most important is the one that is related to the underwater. That is the new domain where we should be able to foster innovation forward. Because, I mean, in 1973, Apollo mission crew was able to say, hey, Houston, we have a trouble. 70 years later, 60 years later, we are not able yet to say, hey, Odessa, hey, Kyiv, we have a Russian submarine that is entering in the port due to the physical constraint. That's the reason why the underwater domain is the best environment where we can bring innovation in the next phase.
Great, thank you so much. Let me turn to Alessandro Enrico. I know that Leonardo is investing a lot in drone production capabilities. And of course, in Ukraine, we've of course seen the development of these unmanned systems, really with software-defined technologies that are able to, really in many ways outsmart the enemy and really change the nature of warfare. How do you see the drone market in Europe developing in the coming years? And are there also opportunities here to work jointly with Ukraine on developing drone markets, not just for Ukraine, but also for Europe, as we're learning these lessons about modern warfare?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this event. And yes, I mean, the question is very related to, all the topics that are being discussed during this event. First of all, the way we approach, innovation. Because we are talking about innovation and industrial capability. First of all, I think it's important to address, the innovation process. Why we are learning from Ukraine? We are learning from Ukraine because they combined what we already knew, because, civil capability became more important, at least from, IT, artificial intelligence point of view, the way they could be integrated in military assets. And it's not the case that some companies from Silicon Valley turn to be, turn to address, military market. Just to quote one, Unreal, Shield AI, and so on and so forth. And this requires a new process. A new process means a new process not only in terms on how the industry is addressing innovation. That means to, fast prototype, to test it on the field. It's very important. And it's a completely different process. Because today the process is based on, well-defined requirements come to us, and we start from scratch the design. We test it, not on the field, but with the MODs, and then we deliver. This is quite different, and we can learn from that. But at the same time, we need also to work with institutions in order to change the process. Institutions, MODs, provide us the requirements, because it's very important to also change the concept of operations, the way you can adapt your operation to new technologies. And that's require, a combined ecosystem where industries, and the MODs work together. And it's something that it's already happening, because many nations, many countries have launched programs in order to address this challenge. And that is why we set up this, agreement with BICAR, because we realized that, first of all, we need to have a capability to scale up, first of all, and a capability to innovate, and BICAR is quite good at, addressing this kind of challenges. And the other important thing is, however, from industrial science, from industrial point of view, is to ensure that all this system can interoperate with, legacy assets. That's something that, and this is another challenge that we need to address. So, how we are working on these systems, it's very important, the level, the autonomy that you can embed in them, because in some cases you need to operate in GPS denied environment. So you need to provide the system with capability in order to navigate without GPS. This is the first challenge. And to operate within a new electronic warfare environment that, as demonstrated in Ukraine, is quite challenging, because Russia is very good at addressing this kind of topics. This is for what concerns innovation. For what concerns industry, most of the topics have been already discussed, but it's relevant the way Ukraine is challenging the model we used. In terms of scalability and in terms of cost, of course. And this is a current challenge because, as you know, European defense budgets are increasing. And so companies like European companies and defense company now need to address this kind of challenge. And in this case, I think that Ukraine could, provide us the support synergies, because we can cooperate. In order to increase the scalability, you need to have a very robust supply chain. That means that in some cases, subsystem, could be provided from Ukraine, for example. And just to quote one, for example, engines for small systems, for small drones, is something that we need. Or, small electronic system and small electronic equipment, also mechanical subsystems. And I think that in this case, we can cooperate And by the way, it's something that legacy industries like the one that are on the stage at the moment have modeled to do this. I mean, it's not something new. When we cooperate with a foreign country, we have models in order to scale up, because it's something that you must design very well and to adapt to tailor, on the shoulders of the country in terms of, know-how, availability of the competencies, knowledge, skills, and of course, investments and assets present over there. That is why generally the industry provides, MRO capability, maintenance, repair, and overall capability in order to train people to do that and maintain their asset, on the field, and introduce capability in order to, manufacture subsystem, then assembly line and production line of complex system at the end.
Thank you so much. We do have an opportunity to bring in questions from all of you, but before I do so, I want to go back to our Danish colleague, Secretary Elling Refeld, because I'm really curious about, given the upcoming, or which now started, Danish presidency of the European Council, curious how you think about the role of integrating Ukraine's defense industry into the European security architecture, and how will you advance these issues during your upcoming presidency?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we just last week we had the pleasure of taking over the presidency, and of course, security in Europe is really our main priority for the presidency. The next 6 months, that will be our main target point. What can we do in that specific role? One of the 4 priorities that we have identified as key for us, sort of must-win battle, is really how we can include the Ukrainian defense industry into the broader European industry base. I think for all the reasons we just heard in the panel, there's so many good reasons why this should be done. There are also a number of obstacles that needs to be addressed on both sides. Some of it, of course, will have to be addressed by our Ukrainian friends. That has to do with export permits, financing coming in and out of Ukraine, and so on. And some of it has to be done on our side. That is why we have engaged on a national level to really make the setup of Ukrainian defense industry in Denmark a success. I'm pretty sure within the next couple of months, we'll have a number of very concrete success stories coming out of Denmark on how we integrate Ukrainian defense industry into our own setup. But of course, there are a number of opportunities as the presidency where we can push this agenda. We have all agreed that we should be ready to defend, Europe should be ready to defend itself by 2030. The only way we can do that is to ramp up our industry. And a very significant way of doing this is to tap into the innovation that is happening with our Ukrainian friends and the speed of which they are doing this. So I think we will push this on all the different levels we can. Where can we get financing? Where can we address obstacles in our regulations? Where can we overcome the political oppositions there might be from some quarters? And that is a top priority for us during our presidency.
Thank you. That is great to hear, and we wish you good luck with your presidency. So I want to open this up to questions. We have about 10 minutes. There are going to be mics coming from here. Please raise your arm, have my attention. Please try to keep the questions, to a question and keep them focused. We'll start with the gentleman here, and please introduce yourself as well. Great. Two excellent questions. So the one key lesson and a comparison with Russia. Why don't we turn quickly if any of our industry panelists want to respond?
Finally, yes, the process. The process, the way they innovate. Because just to provide you a clear example, if you want to fly a drone in Europe, depending on the complexity of the drone, you need to certify it. And certification requires, redundancy, to reduce the risk that these drones could, face any kind of issue during the flight. But if you need to use it in a battlefield, of course, maybe you can change at least, the level you need to certify it. Because of course you cannot put in risk, people, but it depends on the kind of use. And maybe we are not used to this new use of drones. And this level of complexity depends also on the size of the drones that they're using. In this case, in Ukraine, we are talking about commercial drones, FPV drones. Some cases are maximum takeoff weight is no more than 25 kilos. That is commercial drones for use. So the process, I think, is the first option.
My first option is the shift in business model. The industry is changing, that we like it or not. In Ukrainian, it's quite clear. In US, it's already happening. In Europe, will happen, but will happen for sure.
And I think I would tie both of those together with the innovation cycle. That's where I think we all would benefit. And I think we are slowly starting to evolve our processes, but I think that is absolutely what we've seen is the ability to take equipment and quickly adapt it, and building that into how we go about building our products, I think is a great lesson.
Great. And Benjamin, the question about comparing Russia and drones.
Yeah, just to add a couple of thoughts there. So this isn't like a generalized statement and isn't to say that Russia isn't innovating, but the Russian defense industry, the way that it is set up in its very centralized form with very large consortia like Rostec and so forth, isn't particularly conducive to innovation. Again, it's not to say that Russia isn't innovating on the battlefield, but the industry as a whole. What Russia is very successfully doing is scaling up production of certain systems that work. They may not always be the most high-tech ones. For instance, Shahed drones are relatively simple instruments. As you know, they originally come from Iran. Now Russia builds them almost entirely at home domestically and has scaled up production so much that we now increasingly see these several hundreds of Shahed drones per night trying to overwhelm Ukrainian air defenses to then get a couple ballistic missiles through. This is, I think, a good example of what Russia does very successfully, scaling up the production of certain systems, a little less innovation, for sure.
Great. Thank you. We're going to pick up a few more questions. We'll go first to the lady in the front. Can you get a microphone?
Hello, Catherine Vlinga, Canadian CEO and Canada-Ukraine Chamber of Commerce. So this is a question for our esteemed speaker from Denmark. And it's specifically around the Danish model and NATO commitments. So if the money it flows into from outside for Ukrainian defense industry, does that contribute to the NATO commitments for a country? That's the first question. And then the second question is, when we look at the massive defense spending budgets, Canada, we're in the same position as yourselves in Denmark. Is there an opportunity to use confiscated Russian sovereign assets and fulfill our NATO commitments that way by providing them for Ukraine defense?
Thank you. Over to our Danish colleague.
Thank you very much. Yes, yes, indeed. So to the first question, the investments we put through the Danish model into the Ukraine's defense industry, it does count into our NATO commitment. So that was one of the points we were very focused on in the negotiations leading up to the 3.5 plus 1.5% agreement in Hague, is that our support to Ukraine on the defense side will count into the 3.5%. And I think that's absolutely necessary if we want to keep and even increase the level of military support that we give to Ukraine, that has to be counted within that budget. On the second question, no. So we, through the Danish model, quite a significant part of the windfall proceeds from the Russian frozen assets are challenged through the Danish model. So this year it's we're currently around 900 plus million euros, quite a significant increase from last year. And those funds will not be counted within the NATO budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have a panel coming up after this one focusing on the sovereign assets. So we'll discuss that further. Gentleman in the blue shirt in the second row.
Thank you very much. Nigel Gould-Davis from the International Institute for Strategic Studies. And yes, indeed, I will be chairing the roundtable later today, devoted specifically to the question of potential transfer of these immobilized assets from the aggressor to the victim. So the whole panel has compellingly made the case for much closer defense industrial cooperation. It's emphatically win-win for us all. So just to get as specific as reasonably possible, could you just put your finger on the one or two obstacles that are there now that are preventing this happening further and faster? Are they coming from the reluctance and apprehension of Western defense companies? Is it aspects of the domestic Ukrainian environment that are providing hindrances? Is it something else? What are the things, barriers that really need to be targeted to prevent much more of this happening? Thank you.
Thank you. So great question on the obstacles. So I want to turn to the panels. Maybe we'll go in reverse order, and please also incorporate any final remarks you want to make from this session as well, and starting with Alessandro.
Well, I see more a shift in the way that we are approaching Ukraine. Shift because if you can see what is going on in Europe at Commission level, I think they are, creating the ground in order to increase this kind of cooperation. I see what is going on with the European Defense Industry Program, with Rearm Europe. Not mentioning what each country is trying to do in this case. Maybe the perception is due to the fact that we are not doing enough. It's due to the fact that this kind of activity takes time, and it's not a matter of months, unfortunately, but it's a matter of years in some cases. And so my opinion, it's most of the, the things that we need to do, we are putting in place this. So not particularly concerned.
Thank you. Karen, how do you see the obstacles and any final reflection?
I would say from our perspective and what we've been able to do, it's the sustained funding commitments and just the forecasting and the understanding of where the investments are going to go, which I do think the NATO commitments will absolutely enable. The other piece is actually getting to some common standards so that we don't have a variety of 155. I'll use that as the example. So that we can get to scale. So we can look across the industrial base and say, okay, this is what's going to be required. And then we should all work collectively towards producing that item at scale. So those, I think, are the two. It's not as if we're not ready and we're not willing. It's finding those opportunities where you know both companies or multiple companies will get the return as well, obviously.
Yeah, I would say that again from a bit of a broader perspective, that at least the starting point is just very different mindsets. Ukraine has been simply forced to adapt to this very difficult situation and done so very successfully. And again, European military procurement is, I think, just not at the same stage yet. That isn't to say that we can't get there. And the closing message that I would like to convey is rather optimistic one, which is if we actually learn the lessons from Ukraine and Ukraine's fight against Russian aggression, and if we figure out how to rely upon Ukraine for European rearmament, then 3.5% of GDP in Europe over several years sustained buys a hell of a lot deterrence against Russia.
Excellent. And then finally, but not least, our friend Elling Refeld from Denmark. Any final reflections or comments on how you see the challenges?
No. Yeah, thank you very much. I think just to be brief, I think on the Ukrainian side, we have a number of obstacles in the regulation, something that our Ukrainian friends will have to look at. But where we certainly understand the concern here that if you are in a state of war, would you then allow your defense companies to move outside the country? Would you allow them to bring their financing? These are very tricky and difficult balances that our Ukrainian friends have to make. But it comes, of course, with a positive outcome if that is being done. On our side, I think I agree with my colleague in the panel. It's a question of our state of mind. Do we have the right sense of urgency? Are we too conservative? Are we addressing this as if it's business as usual? Because if it is, we are under a huge burden of regulation. And I'm a bureaucrat myself. I should love this, but it's a real obstacle for us to make speedy progress in establishing the necessary steps to increase our own defense industry. And we have to do something about the slowness and the conservatism of the bureaucracy and the weapons industry in this field, to be honest. And then just on my closing message, I think and again, I'm looking for the positive outcome. I'm looking for the hope here. And I think there is hope. If we are in a situation where the Ukrainian defense industry have a capacity of 35 billion euros, and we're only providing them with half of the financing, we have 17 billion good reasons to support them, which would make them much more effective, which can potentially bring an end to this war. Thank you.
No, thank you. That's a great closing message. And I think this has been a really thought-provoking conversation. The conversation will continue. Before we thank our panels, I just want to thank again Center for American Studies for hosting us here in this beautiful venue. Our friends at Razom, once again, thank you, and for all your great work. Northrop Grumman for your partnership. And last but not least, the Atlantic Council Europe Center and Eurasia Center for all its excellent and longstanding work on Ukraine and Ukrainian recovery. So with that, please join me in thanking our excellent speakers. And stay put, because in a few minutes, the next panel on the economic recovery will continue. Thank you.